So we're going to move on a little bit. And so we have this next woman. I love it how the women on the pages are like jumping out in real life. It is very good. So we're going to hear from Ayris Scales. Ayris Scales is a versatile tri-sector executive with extensive experience in fundraising, strategic communication, and implementing equitable initiatives. Renowned for her ability to forge effective public and private partnerships and lead dynamic teams, she excels in crisis management, policy development, and has been instrumental in supporting women, entrepreneurs, and underinvested communities. As the founder and president of Able Vision Enterprises and SVP of Social Responsibility and Global Initiatives, Ayris is celebrated for her energetic and inspiring talks that drive investment and partnerships. With her impressive record of raising over $60 million and managing more than $200 million, she brings a unique and engaging energy to every professional endeavor. Let's take a look at this.
I'm Ayris Scales. What better time than now to focus on and highlight the journey of Black women in our communities, and the need to understand the hidden rules of the game, the need to understand our collective and the power that we have to advance social change, to drive impact, and most importantly, make sure that we are creating and leaving a legacy. Let me tell you, I have spent the last 20 years being an advocate, being a voice, and looking at ways to disrupt systems so that we can empower women in our communities. We can no longer continue to show up as our best selves, burning out with our heads down and our nose down, and not taking the time to be strategic and to be thoughtful and intentional about how we leverage our collective. I am really committed to being a voice, a champion, and hopefully an inspiration to other women of color along their professional journey and their entrepreneurial journey.
All right. Do me a favor and give a wealthy you round of applause for Ayris Scales.
Hello. Oh my goodness. You're joining me, right? Okay. I know. Oh my God. I was like, I remember her. So many Ayrises.
I know, right? Right? All those. Beautiful. Oh, it's so good to see you. Okay. Well, what a fitting keynote for this event. Ayris, thank you so much for being here. Please give her a round of applause. So, we met, just to let you know, we met maybe a couple of months ago, and she told me what she did, and I told her what I did, and she was like, we need to connect. And I was like, well, it just so happens that I have this event coming up, and I think you would be perfect. So certainly, Ayris, we saw your journey, right? You've done a lot, around equity for Black women specifically. Yeah. You have headed Walker's Legacy, yeah, right? And now you're SVP for the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trust. Yes, and I'm interested in knowing what was something that we didn't see on that reel that you think it's important for this audience to know.
All right, well, first and foremost, thank you so much. And that last discussion was so good. I want to just jump in. I was sitting over like, oh, I want to add to that, and I want to add to that. And I'm not going to talk about that because she just said that. But, so one, I'm really flattered to be here. When I think about where I am today, and I've been hearing this word legacy, legacy, legacy. And I'm going to share a little something. When I hit 40, I went and got my first tattoo. And it had legacy in it.
Oh, wow.
Because it's so important to me. And what you don't see, what you don't know is, my grandmother, by the time she was 22, I think had 3 kids out of 10 that she ended up having. My mom, when she was 20, was already married for several years and had a child. And then doggone it, I'm trying to break that so that I could get ahead further, right, financially and educationally. And then at 19, I did what? Got pregnant and had this amazing daughter who's now 26, almost, which is crazy. And I share that because I think so often when people look at my life, they don't understand what really went on behind the scenes. And even before I got to that point, I shared in a conversation the other day, growing up, my father would say, Ayris, we are one paycheck away from being homeless. And I would be like, oh my God, right? I appreciate it, I guess, now that he was trying to have me understand where we were financially. But when I think about the kind of trauma, and I mean that, like psychological trauma that had on me, I didn't even realize that until later in my life. And so all of those kind of things really drove how I approached my education. They drove how I approached myself as a leader, as an entrepreneur. They drove the decisions I made, the kind of risk I was willing, but mainly not willing to take, because I'm always trying to seek that financial freedom. And then I got to a place, and I'll share a bit about that in 2020, where I was just like, I can't keep functioning like that. Because even though I'm trying to get more, this psychological stuff that was happening in the back was holding me back from achieving that. And so I had to make some serious decisions in terms of the career trajectory I was trying to go down, the roles that I thought I needed to be in, and realize how I could really leverage and maximize that. So for me, work is not just work. I am thinking about the network that I have access to, and purposely made decisions to take a step back from being a CEO or an executive director of an agency to becoming a senior vice president, because the network and the circles that I'm in and the access I have right now, I would have never been able to achieve. And so for some folks, I think we think about titles, we think about, you know, oh, I'm the such and such. But you're the such and such a what? You know, you're sitting here with this very limited network, this limited access. And so challenging us to think differently about those things.
I love that. So, you know, what's so interesting, I never know what someone's going to say, right, when I ask them a question like that. And I applaud your vulnerability. Do you applaud that as well? Like, she shared something that you saw that slide, right? And you're like, wow, she's had a magic life. And for so many women, that is not true. And I think that's what holds all of us back. Like, we don't want to tell the thing, right? Like, we don't want to tell all the things. And what we don't know is telling those things can help. That allows people to see us. And it allows, and I know it's counter to what we're taught. You know, we were taught, put on your best face, do all the things, don't ever let anybody see you sweat, all of that, right? So what I am interested in, and why I was so intrigued by your role, is I felt like, oh, she's in those rooms, right? She's in those rooms of high net worth, and has access. But at the same time, how is she feeling being in those rooms? And so that's the question I have for you. So you're SVP, National Association of Real Estate Investment Trust, and I'm just interested in how it feels to be in there.
Real quick, how many of you know what a REIT is? Okay, I love it.
This is WealthyU, baby. You know what I'm saying?
If the hands weren't up, I'd be concerned.
No, but for those in our virtual audience as well, let's just explain what that is.
Yeah. So I'm like, before I start talking about these rooms, I want them to understand what the room was comprised of. So I work for an organization called NAREIT. We're a trade association, a membership-based organization for real estate investment trust, which is really just a form of commercial real estate that is more of an investment vehicle versus something that you hold on to for long. I mean, you definitely hold on to a REIT for a long term, but it's not like you're getting the capital gains, you're getting dividends on a monthly or quarterly basis, and you can invest in a REIT usually a lot easier than you can in, say, private commercial real estate. And so for our REITs, the ones that we're representing, the rooms that I'm sitting in, are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So you can actually acquire these REITs just like the stock, like you would Google, Apple, whomever. When I came into this role, and I was out in the hall and I heard a young lady mention Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights is a suburb in Cleveland. This is all gonna come together. Mm-hmm. So it's a suburb in Cleveland that I just so happen to have the privilege of going to high school in. Now, Shaker Heights is one of the most affluent communities in the country. Again, I was one paycheck away from being homeless, okay? But my mother, at like 38, decided to go to college, and she started changing her whole trajectory for our lives. So she moves to Cleveland, she rents right on the border in Shaker Heights, and I get to go to high school there. And 2 years ago, someone reached out to me, a global headhunter, and said, hey, we've got this role at this organization called NAREIT, would you be interested? And I looked at the role and I was like, oh, that's cute, 10 years ago. It's not the role I'm in now, I'm gonna tell you in a second. And I was like, oh, but I'll share with my, my network. But then I started thinking, and we all know this, you do not turn down any conversation around money, opportunities, contracts, roles. So I said, I'm gonna share it, but I'm willing to have a 15-minute conversation. So we talk, and before what made me change my mind was I looked up who the CEO was of this organization. He's a multi-generational family from Shaker Heights, Ohio. Shaker Heights is a Jewish community. I'm talking money. And I said, shoot, I'm gonna sit and talk to him hopefully one day. So let me talk to this headhunter, see if I make it through for a job I'm overqualified for that I know I'm not gonna take, just for an opportunity to maybe sit and meet this gentleman named Steve. And I knew who his wife was. She was with a family called Forest City. They sold their company for $11 billion. And I'm like, I need to know these people. And so, part of what we talked about earlier was putting things down. That's great. Document, put down what you've done, but we also should not be afraid to make sure that we're sharing it publicly. Yes. And that is, I think, a little counter. I know we've got some boomers and some Xers in here, and so that whole thing of like putting yourself out there, you look boastful, you look like you're trying to showboat. I'm sharing that because when I spoke with the headhunter, we talked for 15 minutes, and he said, you know what, I want to have you meet with Steve next week. And I said, I'm gonna talk to you for 15 minutes, and now I'm gonna go talk to Steve next week. Isn't there a whole? He said, oh, no, I've been watching you for like 10 years.
Wow.
No, seriously. He says, I've been watching you for like 10 years on LinkedIn. I already know who you are. You good. And I said, well, okay. Okay. And I met with Steve, and I had been doing a lot of work prior to that meeting on myself. I mean, and it sounds so cliche, but that whole strategic alignment, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had never done work on a global level. And I was like, I'm going to just tell him I want to do work that focuses globally, because if it's not focusing globally, I might as well just stay where I'm at. I wanted to make sure that I was doing work that was directly going to impact Black people and women, particularly in commercial real estate, through philanthropic investments, not just talking, right, and through legislative and policy support. So when I sat and told him that, he was like, okay. Meeting was over. And that afternoon, the gentleman Conrad called me. He said, Steve wants to meet with you next week when he comes back from New York. And I said, well, what do you want to talk to me about for a role that we know I'm overqualified for? And I had already shared with him I wasn't interested. He said, I think you're going to like the conversation, but I can't tell you because it's my client. And I said, okay. And when I met him, he said, I've got this new role I've created. Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility and Global Initiatives. And he slid me the job description. I said, oh my God, that's everything I just said I wanted to do. And I sat there very stoic. And I said, okay, thank you. And then Conrad called me. He said, oh my God, I thought you'd be excited. They're concerned you're not going to take. I said, Conrad, send me the contract. The hell? I am ready. I said, what the? Right? But I was trying to keep it together because I didn't want them to be like, she ain't never been nowhere. Right?
Well, you know what happened? You hung up that phone and you probably ran around the room and did a
I
praise
called my
shout.
mama, I called my daughter. I said, oh my God, what is this? But one of the things that I oversee is we have a CEO council. And so these are CEOs of publicly traded commercial real estate companies that function globally. I mean, billions. This is a $4.2 trillion industry. And if I'm gonna be honest, started out in the private sector and then I went public. I worked under 5 different mayors, running agencies, running myself to the ground, and then did some nonprofit work. And I'm not gonna lie, I had some very toxic, traumatic, I'm gonna use that word again, experiences with white board members, white supervisors, male and female, to the point where I was like, it was bad. And so I did have a little, and I'm not, like, I was a little nervous coming into this. I said, this is an old, rich, white, male-dominated industry, and I'm gonna be sitting here talking to you about how to support people who look like me, investing money into organizations and communities that I come from. This is gonna be hard. But I am not going to lie, and I'm not just saying it, I didn't know we was being streamed, hey.
No, we're not.
Oh,
We're
okay.
only to our community.
Okay,
right,
okay, hey,
right.
community,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But still, I will not lie. This has been some of the most openly embraced, highly supported, resourced work that I've ever done. And it is a unicorn. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm in an industry that is also publicly traded. And because it's publicly traded, there's a lot of reporting and transparency that has to go public, right? And I'm not gonna say that's the only reason, but I do think publicly traded commercial real estate is in a different space with regards to what I do versus privately held commercial real estate.
Yes, and I am interested to know, Ayris, like, did you know what a real estate investment trust was when they reached out to you?
I didn't, and it was hilarious. In November, I was doing a keynote in Nairobi, and they were so excited. They said, and now we're gonna bring to the stage industry expert, Ayris Scales. And I got up there, I said, oh, it's my 1-year anniversary in Monroe. And guess what? In 1 year, you too can be an expert. I hadn't even heard, I never heard of a REIT, but I've done a lot of commercial real estate deals because I was in economic development. I negotiated with developers. I worked on public-private partnerships, but REITs never, that term didn't come up. So I was like, what is a REIT? But now I'm an expert.
Now you're an expert.
Yeah.
Well, I am interested though. So for those of you who don't necessarily know what a REIT is, it's a real estate investment trust. So think of a mutual fund,
Yep.
right? But it's all real estate, okay? And there are different kinds. So you could have real estate investment trusts that are partnerships. Those are short-term, what she referred to as being private, right? So they're still distributed by high net worth clients, right? And the benefit to real estate really is that all of the benefits, the tax advantage benefits that she
lots of tax advantages for the REITs. The advantage for us as investors is that it takes a lot of that, I would say the risk first and foremost. Commercial real estate is a lot of risk, right? Because you're subject to inflation, the economy, the market, and all of that. So with the REIT, because it's long-term, you just ride the wave, but you don't have the risk of making sure that a deal or a project comes to fruition and you get that return on that investment. I mean, because you've got the experts who are handling that. The other thing that's really cool about REITs, which I had no idea, so when people think commercial real estate, they're primarily thinking about office, they're thinking about residential, but there's 13 different sectors. So it's like whatever meets your, floats your boat, you can pick. So there's infrastructure, there's data centers, there's warehouses. That is a big one right now. Because think about how we're shipping and moving things now as an economy. People need to figure out where to put things because they're not necessarily using buildings and transportation the same way. So warehouse. One of the things that actually really blew my mind, you'll hear like Verizon say, we got more towers than anybody in the world. And you're thinking those towers are Verizon's towers. They're not. They're actually American Tower, which is one of our clients, and they're the second largest REIT in the world. But what happens is all of these different telecom companies rent from those towers. So it's almost like the tower is a building, and Verizon might be on the top, and AT&T is renting below it, and T-Mobile. And so Verizon may have some towers, but they might be renting out, space on more towers. So it's an amazing industry.
Yeah, so I think what we need to understand as investors, and that's what I meant about being in those rooms and saying, man, they have a totally different blueprint. The real benefit to real estate investment trust is not only the appreciation of the asset, meaning them buying it at a price and it going up, but the other tax advantages you get, because then you get to depreciate that stuff. Every year you get a K1 and it allows you to write off that depreciation or whatever right on your current taxes. And as an individual investor, to her point, you're allowing someone with expertise to choose these different projects, whether they be in infrastructure or whatever, and then you as an individual are able to take advantage of it. And that leads me to my next question, Ayris. In your role, I feel like there's such a limited amount of access and knowledge about REITs. And so talk to us a little bit about what in your role the whole social responsibility aspect of it kind of encompasses.
I love this. So this is really new work for us as an industry and even as an association. Under social responsibility sits for me all of our philanthropic efforts around organizations that are, supporting or advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion with a focus on really people development and talent development, as well as working with small women-owned and diverse-owned businesses to get them more opportunities to have contracts and do procurement with our members. Additionally, sitting within that space is working with our CEOs to really understand the challenges that they face in that area and then coming up with solutions. And so I tell people we have done an amazing job communicating with investors. And when I say investors, we do about 400 meetings a year with all of the high net worth individuals, a lot of these financial institutions, pension funds, because if you have a pension or a mutual fund, a REIT is probably part of that portfolio. So we're constantly having to educate and work with them, and then we lobby on the Hill a lot because it is legislation that actually established REITs back in the 60s, and so you got to make sure that legislation is protected every single political cycle. But what we have not done so well, and then obviously we communicate well with our members. So those have been our three primary groups. But since I've come on board, I'm like, yeah, but we also, if we're saying we're trying to be more diverse and we're trying to have more inclusion and we want this to be a more accessible industry and more visible, we have to be able to talk to everyday people, right? And everyone is not necessarily, over 160 million Americans actually have a REIT within their portfolio in some form or fashion, but there's still a majority or a gap of people that we're missing or that could even have more, right? And it's not just about investing in REITs, but for me, it's about having financial literacy, right? Financial competency and financial confidence so that be it a REIT or something else that meets your objectives, you can pursue that. And so I have been trying to get out here and just talk to more of us about what that looks like.
Yeah, and I do think it's the reason why I wanted to have you here is that we've really been focused on high net worth strategies. So that first generation high earner, what we never learned, all we know is make the money, right? And then as we get more income, we're wondering, okay, why don't I have more income, right? Because because we're paying more in taxes. And I really believe that the area of expertise that we need to have more competency in is investments like REITs and how they not only give us diversification in our portfolios, but also the tax advantage benefits. And so as you look at the work that you're doing now, what do you think would be a good way for like the average person to understand how that fits in their portfolio? You know, many of these folks have 401ks, you know, and that's an option in those 401ks, but they really don't necessarily understand what they are. And so what does that look like?
Let me just start with, I am not a tax advisor.
That's good.
I'm a philanthropist.
Yes, you are.
And a businesswoman. But to that, one of my favorite, yes, the more we make, the more we're taxed. However, sometimes the more we make, the more we just do more of what we were doing. I tell people, if you show me how you spend and manage a little bit of money, I'm gonna show you how you spend and manage a lot of money. And I've met and spoken with many women, and I look at some people in my life who have doubled, tripled, whatever, their salaries, and they still can't figure it out. And it's not about the tax piece, it's about just the management piece, right? And that value in that relationship. But that aside, I think with regards to, you know, further consideration for REITs as part of your investment portfolio or, you know, part of your diversification efforts, it's like with anything else. You just gotta study and do the research. I do tell some folks, you know, just try it out, because particularly for the companies that we represent, they're on the stock exchange, you know, so maybe just buy a couple little shares. You don't have to put a whole bunch out there, and see how it performs and get more comfortable. It's really no different than any other kind of public stock that you're looking to acquire. It's just understanding the different sectors. Obviously, there are some sectors that are doing better than others, right? We all know that office is really struggling. However, Class A office in prime markets is still doing extremely well. And we have members who, you know, represent that. So it's just research.
You know, I'm interested too in you, right, as a woman and as someone who would, you know, just based on your sharing, your father saying, well, we're one paycheck away from homelessness, and now you are that first generation high earner. What have you had to do yourself to become more competent?
I love that. And I'm still working, right, on that. And one of the things that I've done, and I know this is not something that suits everyone's cup of tea, but it was a choice that I made. And it was a little bit, I won't say, it's like deferment. I live a very modest lifestyle.
Well, you couldn't tell that by the way you look. Wait a minute. No.
I do. And for instance, you know, the house that I'm in right now, I purchased it when I was a fellow making $40,000 a year in Fort DuPont in DC. I could have left this home many, right. Now I can't, because I'm like, God dog it, I can't afford nothing. But I made that decision. I would tell people I could work at Starbucks and still pay my mortgage. I have no pressure from being like house poor. I take that money that could be going towards an additional, a higher mortgage, and I invest it in other things, right? It has been extremely important to me I want to make sure that my daughter does not have to worry financially about what is next. And it was so touching. About 2 years ago, she was with me at a conference, and I was in the hotel, I was getting ready. And she said, Ma, I just want you to enjoy yourself. Don't worry about me, I'm gonna be good. And I said, I know you're gonna be good, but I want you to be secure.
Better than good.
Right, I want you to be secure. And she's like, okay. But one of the things that I've been doing as of now, as I said, I'm releasing a little bit, is it's not just about my why. The current question is to what end? Like, I had to get a number, because otherwise I was going to always feel like, okay, I haven't reached what I'm trying to get to. And it's like, well, dang, are you trying to leave this girl with $5 million? You trying to leave her with $1 million? You trying to leave her with 50? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? And then, Ayris, what is it that you really need so that you say you want to retire at 50? What are you willing to live off of? And so for, the big piece for me was, I say it was kind of deferment. Like, I just made decisions to live a little differently because I did not want to have that burden and that stress and that pressure on me that, oh my God, now I got to sell my soul just to stay in a role or to take on contracts that I didn't want to meet a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I do find that fascinating, because now you're in these rooms, right? And you're seeing mega wealth. And so what are you learning from that about, you said the gentleman that hired you, you were aware of the wife, Shaker Hutz, selling their business for $20 billion. What's different from when you're walking in some spaces versus what you're walking in now?
Oh, I talk about this all the time. These CEOs are the most unassuming people you would ever know. You will walk past them and have no idea. They are not boastful. They are not flashy. I had my little Mini Cooper ran down to the ground, and I had to get a new car. Y'all was mad I had to get a new car, and I was talking about it, and what did the CEO? He said, "Oh God, you got to pay a car note?" Like, he was like, "Oh, he was like, oh, it's like, poor thing." I was like, right. And my CEO shared, like, he's been in his same home, he said, for almost 30 years. He's like, I'm not moved. Like, they just move differently. And I chuckle because having worked, I'm going to be honest, like with some national Black organizations and working with politicos and new money folk who think we doing something, we out here just, and I'm always like, how are people affording these things? I ask, like, what are y'all doing? Because the people who really got it, they don't even want you to know they have it. And that's another thing about this industry. It's so quiet. We don't do a lot of big public posting because they don't want to draw attention for many reasons. But they also don't feel like they have to. Right.
That's interesting. So she really just defined what we say in WealthyU, and that's real wealth is quiet.
It's quiet.
Right? You won't
it's
see
silent.
it. It's silent, right? You won't see it walking in the door. And I do feel like it is interesting that you, in spite of the success that you have the role that you have right now, you have a mindset that's very sober about money. And do you feel like that is a product from being traumatized? I mean, for a parent, I mean, how many of you would feel like if your parents said we're one paycheck away from homelessness, how would that make you feel just in terms of insecurity? So if you think about that and how you make your choices around money now, how has that influenced the choices that you make?
It influenced it significantly. Like, I know, and I'm not like, I've realized I almost have an unhealthy relationship with money. In that,
oh, tell me more.
Okay, so my mother tells me I have a problem because I'm a minimalist. So you come to my house, I don't have much of nothing, right? It's like, oh. She's like, how do you not have an extra pot? Because I'm one person, I only need one. And she has literally 15 pots. But she don't have no money. I took your other 14 pots and I put it in the bank. And so what it's done is that it literally crippled, I'm not gonna lie, like, I have been terrified to spend money in an excessive way. I'm sure, like, this is only my second time ever talking about this. And this is not a flex. I looked up one day and I was like, oh my God, I'm a millionaire. Like, I'm a millionaire. But I'm scared.
Yeah.
Right, of what that means. Like, oh my God, will I lose it? And so it's been a gift and a curse to have this relationship and this view of money, because my family is just like, wow. There's no one to point to in our family. And even to talk about being like this public, you don't talk about money, right? In public, we don't do that. And so it's definitely given me some angst. But because I've been doing a lot of self-work, I'm also now realizing that I have had this unhealthy relationship. But it's actually been good that I've had this
Well, it
unhealthy
served
relationship.
you, right?
It served me,
It has served
right?
you. I'm going to open it up to questions, though. I hope I'm sure you guys are just as fascinated by this conversation as I am. Who wants to step up to the mic and ask a question?
She laughing.
Sure. Here you go. Here's Suzanne.
My daughter and I were just, can you hear me? My daughter and I were just sitting here just listening to you. She said she sounds like you.
Hey, girl, let's talk about it.
So true how we think about money in the scarcity mindset to a certain degree. And like you're like, am I going to leave her all that darn money?
Right.
I told you I'm going to lose my mind at 65. I'm going to lose my mind because we've been trying our best not to do the wrong things.
right.
And we're all sitting here, we're like, we're going to retire. And we're like, we're not. Nope. I drive a Corolla, and it's
Girl.
a 2013.
You hear me?
Honestly.
That's right.
And the only way I'm going to get a new one, because I'm going to give that one to my niece. And I'm hoping that she don't need it this year.
Me too, because the cost of capital is crazy.
I don't want a car payment. So we're sitting here, and when I'm just listening, like, it's the relationship we have with money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe I need to do some self-work on that. You know, so
Because my daughter says to me, well, Mom, you got to spend it on something.
Something,
Like, and you do. Right? The things
Right.
I complain about, oh my God, I just spent
Right.
$5 on some eggs, so you gotta eat. You know, it's like, I mean, that is ridiculous, but it's also like, I complain about everything that I spend it on.
So you're not alone.
That's great. Any other questions right here? Oh, man, Ayris, that is so funny. That's why I don't like going to the grocery store. Oh, Lord. It's like, I can't believe eggs are $7. What happened? Please
Hi,
go right
I'm
ahead.
Roxanne Johnson from Kansas City, and been in WealthyU for 2 years now. And one thing that I can say that Deborah has taught us is given us confidence to set up our own blueprint, because even if you've reached a certain pinnacle of success and it dips on you, you have the blueprint to rebuild that. And I've learned that from some wealthy people. I'm a former financial reporter for newspapers and wire services. I've also traveled similar path to Deborah. I was a stockbroker at one point, and then moved back into PR and writing, and had an investment club of some ladies for about 10 years. But one thing I've done, I know about people who have wealth, probably some of your clients, even if they lose it, they know how to get it back. And usually they double what they left. It's almost like from the book of Job, how he lost everything. And then when God blessed him again, he had multiplied that. It doubled. It was multifold of what he once had that he lost. So that is what I'm taking away, and what I'm thanking Deborah every day for giving us this blueprint of knowing how to not only make our own wealth, but pass it on to your daughters. And now I'm working on my grandkids. So, you know, to keep that going. So you don't have to be terrified about spending or losing what you have, because what's up here, no one can take that away from you.
Amen. Thank you. Look at y'all pouring into me. That's
Girl.
right. Thank you, ladies.
Pouring it in, girl. You're in the right place.
I know.
Well, and I would say it is intriguing listening to you, because we're savers, right? Not investors. And now you're in this world of investing, and you're learning, you see these people who've created wealth, and they've taken risks to do that. That's right. How is this influencing your own journey?
It's been great, because it's actually made me think I love that we've been savers, but not necessarily investors. And I've been a big saver. I've been I would say I've been an investor, modest, but I am so much more fired up and looking for real opportunities now to invest. And I've had some investments that didn't do so well, particularly some of the first properties I bought. But that also made me think about, I love this blueprint. You know, one of my favorite CEOs that I used to work for back in the day, and it's a woman, Andy Zopp. When she first came into this organization, I was in Chicago, she said, I see a lot of activity, but no strategy. And even now I work with clients, I'm like, y'all got a lot of activity, but no strategy. And they want to challenge me often around, I don't need a strategy. I just need to prioritize. Like, prioritize what? You got so much happening that you could be spending all of your time over here, but where you're really trying to get is over here, and now you're wondering why you're not hitting these goals. Because I went to 500 networking events, but they were all the wrong networks. Right? Or that wasn't even what you were trying to focus on at that time. What are you in the room talking about? You can't even articulate what your ROI is, your value prop, what your business model, but you in here networking, talking about what you do. And so when I think about now investing, I have a much more clear blueprint for the types of investments I'm looking for. For me, this is bad. It's not really, people are like, oh, you need to go buy more. I don't want to buy more property. I'm looking for businesses that I can invest in. I'm looking for art that I've come up with what my blueprint is. And so it's not necessarily being afraid now that I'm a little more clear, right? With clarity comes confidence, and then you can start to chart your course of action.
I love that. With clarity, you find confidence. Ayris, I would love for you to, you've been in two different spaces, and you've been in the nonprofit world. You headed Walker's Legacy. You've been in a lot of nonprofit sector. You've been in the private sector. What's the difference in mindset in those two places?
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest difference is around purpose and profit. And even on my LinkedIn, I have one, it's like, I try to bring those together where you can be purposeful and you can be profitable. And when I say that, in the private sector, at the end of the day, they have to make money. And yes, nonprofits have to bring in resources to do their work, but they're not necessarily driven with profit first versus purpose first.
That's interesting, because I've always felt that way, that nonprofit is an oxymoron. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the two should go together. Is there a question I just can't see from those lights? Please, go right ahead.
Oh, I thought you were doing mine. Well, I just wanted to give you a little bit of
Tell me
something
who you are.
Oh, I'm Dr. Z.
Okay.
And I've been in WealthyU for a moment, a young OG. Anyway, I just wanted to say to you something that gave me a little bit of healing and thinking in the mindset that we are trying to provide and to save and sequester. My son approached me for my husband's birthday about buying him a Rolex. And I said, oh, most definitely not, So at our dinner, my son comes out and hands my husband a Rolex, not one bought from like the resold again, but from the Rolex place. And he said, Mom, it's something Dad's always wanted, and I want him to have it and know that he has it, because my husband did have a brain bleed and he doesn't remember everything. I want him to know that he had it. So consider those things when you're holding on. If like your mom or people that are older and it's something that they've always wanted, let that go. He touched me when he said that, like, I want him to know that he had it while he had it. And so consider those things, because we do tend to say, like, I'm like, oh, absolutely not, I'm not in that, but he did it.
I love that. And at least he got something that he could have that's going to make a lot of money.
Hey, Deborah, the chat is on fire, and I want to get to a question from the chat. This is from Valerie, and Valerie wants to ask, Ayris, are you familiar with investing in opportunity zones, and how could or should we do this?
I am familiar with opportunity zones. I mean, to invest in the opportunity zone, it's no different than investing in any community or opportunity, it's just, there's going to be a lot more federal oversight and compliance and rigor. I say to anyone that's looking to do real estate development that you have to be honest with yourself about the risk, about the cost of the capital, your ability to raise that money, how long it takes. And so I wouldn't say not to pursue an opportunity zone investment. It's just a matter of, are you ready to deal with all of the compliance and the reporting and the federal requirements that come along with it, and understanding that those deals, on top of real estate deals already taking a long time to come to fruition, just may take longer.
That's good. Let's give Ayris a round of applause. Ayris, thank you so much. Star Barbertoon, it's your time. Thank you so much for coming. Yes.
Thank you,
So
ladies.
good. So good.
So that was fabulous. Was that fabulous? That was fabulous. And so we're going to take a break, but what I need to hear is just like two things. Two things you got from that amazing interview. Somebody stand up. Somebody tell me two things. Two things you got. Yes, ma'am, right over here. Give her a mic.
Oh, I'm loud. Okay. With clarity comes confidence. Oh, my name is Carla.
Thank you, Carla. What do you
Carla
do, Carla?
Coates.
What do you do?
I'm an executive coach.
Excellent.
With clarity comes confidence, and I really appreciated the fact of her sharing herself at the beginning. She was very vulnerable, very open, and that just helped me to just be able to share myself without holding back.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let me get one more share over here. Very good. Let's say legacy. Legacy's in the room.
Hi, my name is Tishelle Turknet. Ayris helped me to really own who I am. So I am a senior data analyst at the Home Depot headquarters in Atlanta. But 10 months ago, I also started my own property management company. So I'm owning who I am as an entrepreneur. And what I heard was when she spoke about her new role as being a unicorn, I heard divine alignment, and I heard that your gifts will make room for you. And so my company is actually called Align Global LLC. And when she spoke about actually doing things that are aligned with who you are and your purpose, and as a person, it really, spoke to me, and knowing that it is possible to make a profit and be in your purpose, because that's something that we don't always see.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And so what I love what Ayris said is that work is not about work. Work is about the network. Yes? I thought that was brilliant. So let's give her one more round of applause, just for good measure.